Look at that face, that playing face. Look at that shoulder. I'm sure he's not happy about that. He did miss some notes.
Don't mess up.
Oh, I love that. Do you want to hear my story about Lang Lang?
You should just keep a box of live scorpions. You don't have to use them, but just the threat.
That's kind of the controversial thing about him. There are people in the comments who are going to totally disagree with everything I say, by the way.
It's okay, Beethoven approved.
Yeah, Beethoven approved. Music is so good. Dude steals your wife, and you still like it. It's probably good music. That was beautiful. I like this guy. Hey, Jacob, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm ready for another episode of Piano Professor React.
Awesome. Let's get into it. I'm excited too.
Today, I wanted to talk about Lang Lang because he's incredible. And I found a couple of short pieces and I sent them over to you. If you want to take a look at Liebestraume, that would be awesome.
Liebestraume. All right. What's going on here? We're talking about Lang Lang. I'm always looking for what's the body language looks like, because that's kind of the controversial thing about him. Like right there, the arm raise. I think that left elbow. So let's pause real quick. I think we got a couple of things there. A lot of the criticisms I've heard of this guy is that he's over performative, right? His body language is over the top. His body movement is not serving the expression of the music. And then there are those that will argue that it does. One good argument I think I've heard is that it's a different experience when you watch someone play something versus when you listen to it. So I'm curious about you. I'll weigh in a second, but what's your opinion on the body language and performance? Is that something that you like, or is that something that you feel is distracting?
I like it personally. It makes it more engaging to watch for sure. I just have no access to it as a performer at all. When I'm playing piano at gigs and stuff, I'm very much just like, don't mess up.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because you kind of have to own things to be performative in that way. And Lang Lang definitely does. Like he definitely like owns. He's great. I think he's an amazing pianist, and I actually like the performative stuff as well. Okay, so let's go back to Lang Lang. See what else he does with his body that we can comment on. Shoulder. I don't know if you caught it. He's mostly like note perfect, but he did miss some notes in the left hand there. Maybe he didn't miss them. They weren't like clean. I'm sure he's not happy about that. It happens. When I play the Liszt sonata today, especially in like the octave sections, I'm going to do that all the time. It's definitely not me like saying I'm better than Lang Lang. He's pretty perfect. But what I think is interesting about that, even though that happened, it really doesn't matter for the performance. It really doesn't. There are plenty. We can listen to Argerich and Barenboim and people play note perfect all day, and I actually think the artistry and the theatrics of what he's doing contributes more to the experience of the listener than if you were to play a note perfect. I don't know how you feel about that, but
I'll ask you more about that later.
okay, let's keep listening. Look at that face, that playing face. He does this thing with his mouth all the time where he's like, it's almost like he's like, oh, I love that. Da-da-da-da, and then he articulated that last note, both with his body language. There are people in the comments who are going to totally disagree with everything I say, by the way.
People in the comments love to disagree with us.
Yeah. And this is a really controversial thing, so some of them are going to have good points. Now the melody's just in that pinky of his right hand and his left hands, which I actually think is easier than the beginning with the thumb switching. We got a secondary melody, I think, in his right thumb. A lot of beginning students will miss those types of things. One thing that's so hard to get students to do is project a melody in a piano situation. And when I say piano, I mean soft, not like playing the piano, right? I mean, yeah. And he does it really beautifully. That was beautiful. You know what I loved about that last part is he held that note and then he matched the next note to the decay, right? So the piano decays, the instrument decays all the time, and like you press a note, it starts to decay. And when you have like a long stretch like that, you have to really use your ear and listen to where the decay is happening and match the next note that you play with the decay. Singers do this naturally, right? If they're singing a note, they're controlling the decay of their previous note as they go into the next note, and they can kind of create those lines. I believe it's probably easier to do that on violin. Once you strike a piano key, you lose control, whereas in singing and violin playing and all that kind of stuff, you have control of the sound. You can crescendo. You want to hear something ridiculous?
Yeah. Of course.
One of my professors, the guy that I got my doctorate with, I'm going to call him out, Mikola Suk, in case he ever sees this. He told me once that he watched a master class, and I wish I could remember who the pianist was who taught the master class, but that he's like, that a guy could crescendo on a note on the piano, which it's just impossible. It might be some type of trick with the pedal and the overtones. So that's the only way that I could see it kind of working, creating some type of illusion like that the note is crescendoing. He's like, I couldn't believe it, but I saw it happen. I swear. He crescendoed on a note once he hit it.
I mean, I think there's something maybe to that. The only things we have to work with on this instrument is note length, note volume, and note choice, and that's it. So I think sometimes it is helpful to believe you can crescendo on the piano.
Right. It's one of my most memorable, I think, quotes in the famous Scriabin biography by Fabian Bowers, I think is the author of that, is he who can make the piano sound like things other than a piano is a good pianist. You sit down and you play and it sounds like a piano, not a good pianist. you want it to sound like an opera singer, an orchestra. This piece, Liebestraume, pretty clearly lyrical, right? Lyrical like a singer would do, or perhaps like a string instrument playing lyrically.
Well, there was a text, and then I think Franz Liszt published a version of this that did have a vocal part as well.
Oh, cool. I actually didn't know that. That's cool. Just kind of a note about this piece, and it's only bringing it up because it's been on my mind. I'm playing the Liszt Sonata actually today in a concert, which is the holy grail, I think, of all of Liszt piano literature. People are probably going to disagree with me in the comments, but I don't think so. I think actually most people agree with that. The Liszt Sonata and the Transcendental Etudes. The Liebestraume is actually kind of like belongs on the Greatest Hits album, and kind of maybe isn't, it's like the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and then you go deep, like For the Benefit of Mr. Kite and Happiness is a Warm Gun. If you say I Want to Hold Your Hand is your favorite Beatles song, people might judge you the same way if you say Liebestraume is your favorite piece by Liszt, people might judge you. But what I think is cool about the Liebestraume is a very, very Lisztian thing to do is to trade the thumbs for the melody and have stuff going on below the melody and stuff going on above the melody. The first melody note is played in the right thumb. Well, actually, the first melody note is played in the left hand. And then the right thumb plays the next melody note. And then the left thumb plays the third one. And it switches. I did not play this. My student played this, so it was one of those pieces that you kind of learn by teaching. Yeah, I do remember that. And that's hard for students to make sure that when the melody is switching hands, the line makes sense. Like, da, da, is the second C softer or not as soft as the first C? And it takes actually really a lot of thought to make sure that the line, that the growing and shrinking, the crescendos and decrescendos make sense when you're switching the melody and the thumbs. The spot that I'm thinking of is, so the first in the Liszt Sonata. So in that rendition of that part of the melody, the melody is just in the right hand, and then in the starts going crazy. But yeah, the thumb switching back and forth is a super Lisztian thing, super cool. I love it. And Lang Lang does it really well in this piece. You hear like the melody come out, you hear the line. And so anyway, he does that kind of like textbook, I think, well.
That's interesting you mentioned that. I was answering a question in the Piano by Pictures Facebook group. One of our students was asking, hey, is it okay for me to play the melody in the left hand and put chords in the right hand? And I was like, yeah, do whatever you want. Beethoven would put themes in the left hand all the time. It's totally possible, but then even to be on that higher level of the melody is being traded in between the thumbs while all the other fingers do like either bass lines and decorations, that's also totally valid. For a beginning pianist watching this, you do have permission. If you have an idea, hey, wouldn't it be neat if I did this? Yes, just do it. Don't ask me, just go ahead and do it. And if you like it, great. And if you don't like it, don't do it. I think a lot of beginners definitely want permission to try stuff out. People have been playing piano for hundreds of years now. It's all been done. Just go for it.
Just go for it. Try it out. I totally agree. A lot of times beginners get paralyzed by just fear of doing it the wrong way. And so they never get started. I think that actually anything that you want to achieve in life has some like that. Starting a business, going on a diet, you're like, wait, what's the right way to do it? What's the right way to do it? And really, it's just getting started. We generally, in Piano by Pictures especially, we teach chords in the left hand and melody in the right hand. And we do it that way because it's kind of the simplest way to do it. Learn piano, and Piano by Pictures is all about learning piano the easiest way possible. So that's why we do it that way. But you can definitely do whatever, all sorts of things. Right hand plays the melody, left hand plays the melody. This technique we're talking about where the thumbs are switching is difficult. This is an intermediate going into advanced, probably, I would say Liebestraume is. So it's not like it's not like the hardest piece ever. You can definitely learn it as an intermediate player. But there's a lot to it. So it's also okay to not worry about playing the melody in the left hand or the thumb switching thing we're talking about, and live for years in the right hand playing the melody and the left hand playing some type of chord or accompaniment. Because even in Liszt and Beethoven and Mozart, that's happening. Actually, most of the time, I would say, is the right hand plays some type of melody and the left hand plays some type of accompaniment. This piece just happens to start with this more complex thumb switching thing. But yeah, it's very much a song. And Liszt was very much into songs, very, very much, like a lot of composers, right? He wrote this Schubert transcriptions are amazing. I don't know if you've ever heard the Liebesträume. That's one of my favorite transcriptions, like of all time. And I played that. I love playing that piece. Really, really great. Have you heard that before? It's at the end of Tristan and Isolde. It's the kind of finale.
Oh, yes.
And there's Liszt. Didn't Wagner marry Liszt's daughter?
Yes. Let me make sure. Yes. Wagner married Liszt's daughter. Yeah.
So there's a connection there.
Yes, there's a connection there. Yeah. Liszt's daughter was married to Hans von Bülow, who was a famous conductor. And then they divorced. The reason I remember this story from like school and my reading days of reading about all this is Hans von Bülow. People are like, "Do you hate Wagner's music?" Like after he married his ex-wife, and he was like, "No, it's really good." He's like, "It's really freaking good. I can't."
When the music is so good, you can't even hate.
Music is so good. A dude steals your wife, and you still like it. It's probably good music.
Yeah, that's tough.
Do you want to hear my story about Lang Lang?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
One of my favorite stories in my student career phase. So I was here in Las Vegas. I was getting doctorate, and we were fortunate enough to have the MTNA, which is this big music teacher, piano teacher conference, and they had it at the Rio. And one of the main events was Lang Lang was going to come and give a masterclass. And so I submitted some recordings and did an audition and did some stuff, and I got chosen to play. I was one of 3 students to play for this masterclass. Here's kind of the stage, because I had been to this conference for a few days, and to kind of set the stage of what I saw was going to happen, they had 3,000 to 4,000, I can't remember the exact number, of music teachers from all over the world. We met people from Ireland and from Australia and just different places all over the world. A lot of people from the States too, actually. So music teachers, people who are like, know what they're talking about, that you can't really fool as much as other people, right? And Lang Lang, obviously, who's, I'm not going to like try and rate pianists for best in the world, but he has, I think, made more money as a classical pianist than just about anybody. Maybe that's not important to you. That's super impressive to me. I think if you can make millions and millions of dollars playing Mozart and Liszt, then you're smart, at least in some way. And he's a great pianist, obviously. So I was super nervous. I was like starstruck, excited, very nervous, had performance anxiety on this one for sure. I knew there was going to be cameras zoomed in on my hands, had a hard time sleeping, laying in bed. It is March in Las Vegas. We have scorpions, in case you didn't know. Never been stung by a scorpion before, but as I'm laying in bed, I just feel this all of a sudden like sharp jolt in my left leg, and just in a ton of pain. And I actually never found the scorpion, but that's what it was. My leg went numb. So I woke my parents up. I called my parents. My dad's a doctor. I'm like, hey, what do I do? Right, my leg, it's asleep and all this kind of stuff. They came over and gave me some medicine and stuff, and I did not sleep hardly maybe 3 or 4 hours that night. You know, sleeping is good for piano playing. So I was nervous. I'm coming in, I'm like limping in. Lang Lang is, I think he was 30, 45 minutes late. He liked to make an entrance. Everybody was there, it was dark. I was the first one to perform that evening, and one of my friends got a clip of the performance, so I was going to go ahead and play that. Walk out on stage, kind of semi-limping, and have to do this. So that's a piece by Edward McDowell. Do you know McDowell at all, Jacob?
I know the name, don't know any of his music.
Yeah, he's like an American. I'm American, obviously, and I got into, let me find like the American composed classical music. So like Gershwin, and kind of led me to Edward McDowell. And, you know, as a whole, the literature is probably not as good as the Germans, and but there is some good stuff in there. And I actually like this. This is his first sonata. So I came, I had 4 movements ready to go. He only had me play the first one, which is really common, and then taught me and did some stuff. Ended up being an okay experience. I had like really studied those pieces, was really ready. And even though my brain was maybe not functioning at its highest capacity due to lack of sleep, and I was limping on stage, it ended up being okay. So
yeah, the lesson is there. Prepare enough to be stung by a scorpion so that you can play for long.
Practice hard enough, do the mental practice, do all the things that make it so that even if you get stung by a scorpion, I tell that to students actually, like when they're learning scales. I need you to know these to where if I wake you up at 3 a.m. and you have a fever of 103, you could still sit down and play these scales. Like that's how good you should know these and have them in your fingers.
Hey, you should just keep a box of live scorpions.
I should.
You don't have to use them, but just the threat.
Okay, so what's the verdict on Lang Lang? Good? Bad? What do you think?
I mean, it's really hard for me to say anything bad about a piano player who can play way better than me. Fundamentally, I'm not a hater. When anytime anyone puts a lot of work into something, especially musical, I can appreciate that work that's been put into it. Even if it's not something I would want to listen to every single day, I can still respect it. I did have a couple questions about his technique.
Sure, let's do it.
I've noticed from watching a couple of his videos that he lifts his fingers very high. And Yu Wang, also a Chinese piano player, does something similar. And then I took a couple months of piano classical lessons in college, and my teacher Yibing was also Chinese, very much of this high finger thing. And I noticed that like Daniel Barenboim does not do that at all. And so I wanted to get your opinion on high fingers, good and bad, and if they are good, how does one go about practicing them in a way that is not absolutely brutal? And then actually, I have found another little video here. This is Long explaining how to do a C major scale. Yeah, pull it up because you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
All right, let's watch.
Hi everyone, it's Lang here. Welcome to my first learning things with Lang piano lesson.
I just like him, man. I think he's nice.
A little bit about the piano, which is interesting.
Like we would be friends. I feel like we would be friends.
Let's start with middle C.
But watch these fingers.
When I was a kid, I practiced C major scales every day for 20 minutes. Start with this speed. Switch from the left hand. Then, after 2 rounds, let's start. Also twice, okay? And then.
And he's still high and loud.
Okay, so my first question is high fingers, yes or no, in your opinion?
So I view high fingers, I'd be really interested actually to see what he says about this. And this is also a really controversial thing. There are people that totally disagree with us. I think it's valuable in a teaching context. So especially with passages that are really difficult. I like high loud fingers actually for scales. This is kind of an aside of just kind of volume. I think it was was it Horowitz or was it Scriabin? One of those two, I wish I could remember, played loud as a kid all the time, and loud and too loud and loud and loud and loud. And I've heard that like if you're a kind of a banger on the piano as a kid, that you have a good tone as an adult. You're able to like produce a solid like tone, fill a concert hall with your pianissimo sound. So I think that high loud fingers kind of plays into that. I think it gets you playing to the bottom of the key. I think it stretches your fingers, and I think that it is a way to produce technique that is smooth to do that. So I believe in it. I think it's good. A lot of people like disagree, and the argument against it is that it creates like tension in the hands and in the shoulders, and all kinds of things, and tension is bad. And I was actually taught, and this is actually one of the finger exercises that I like to do with beginners, is if you do just like a 5-finger C major scale, so 5-finger position, and lift up one of your fingers as high as you can and feel the tension in your hand, and then you play loud, and right when you play, you want to relax your hand. And you want to go through and do maybe like 10 of those times on each fingers. There's also an exercise, same thing, that and then you switch and you go through the different key areas. It's a stretching exercise. It's Adele Marcus, Rachmaninoff. I think it's attributed to one or both of them. Finger stretching exercises, I think those are great done in like high loud settings. And I think a little bit in scales too. What I'm not sure about, and if anybody wants to comment in the comments about this, is kind of from a performative standpoint. Like I could see argument for high loud being like a theatrical move, especially with Lang Lang, with his like theatrics and his body movement. But like in general, when I'm playing, I don't do high loud. If I'm performing, if I'm playing the Liszt Sonata today, unless I want like that, I want that like. But that's more about the articulation and the attack than it is about the technique. That makes sense?
My next question would be how, because I found that video of Lang Lang doing the C major scale, and I immediately was like, oh, I got to try that out. I want to try to pretend to be Lang Lang and see if I can get those fingers wiggling the same way that he was. And my hands feel terrible now. So is there a way to go about that in a healthy way?
Sure. The way to do that, I think the key is to relax in between. And you got to start super slow. So if you're doing high loud, and then make sure that in between these notes, there's this like, it's almost, see, I'm kind of bouncing. Like, it's because I just want to take away any tension from my wrists, my shoulders, my fingers, any of that. You want to take it away. Like, feel like loosey-goosey in between those. And if you're doing a 2-octave scale, or I would start with a 1-octave scale, it's kind of like what I did in the 5-finger position exercise, but doing that. And the thing is, after a while, the time between tension and release of tension gets quicker and quicker. Like a really famous... I just totally butchered that. Got to practice slow on those things before. But that's like actually a really good, the first Chopin etude. And I think that's about the contraction and the expanding of your hand and kind of the tension that exists there and how to handle that. If your hand felt terrible, it's because you're carrying too much tension and you don't have the release of the physical release that you need.
Okay. I'll give that another go.
Yeah. So feel your body relax in between those things. And if we were to look at that again, like, and see, we would see him relaxing. It's just when he's playing fast, it's happening really fast. As he's playing faster, it's happening faster and faster. And then I think the relaxation happens naturally, but not in between every single note when you're playing that fast, but in between groups of notes. That is my theory on that. That is, I'd be totally interested. I'm not 100% convinced on that. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that, other professional pianists.
So earlier you mentioned something about him either missing or just not playing a couple notes in the left hand. Where do you stand on, I've heard other piano players just calling it cheating, you know, just getting rid of a couple things here and there to make it more playable, make things easier. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're playing Liszt, if you're playing something that's like traditionally, those notes are the notes for the past several hundred years, right? I would say note perfect is like the kind of standard. However, there's this section in the Liszt sonata. So my thumb right there played two notes, right? It glanced on it. It played two notes. It's very hard. It's a whole section of just octaves. It's very hard not to do that. And even some like really, really great pianists, you listen to them. There's some freaks out there. Evgeny Kissin's probably one that I think I've like heard it, and I'm like, I don't think you missed any of those. But it's very hard to be accurate for I don't know how many measures it is, but it's like almost a whole page or more than a page, somewhere around there of octaves in my score. It's really hard to do that. So the ideal is to do it, but at the same time, kind of like we were talking about before with beginners, you don't want to be paralyzed. I'm not going to not play the Liszt sonata because my thumb's going to glance on some of those notes, right? It's still going to be a good performance. It's still going to be enjoyable to the audience. But that being said, when you listen to some of these pianists that don't miss a lot of notes, it's impressive.
I'm fine with mistakes. You know, I'm a big fan of Alfred Cortot, and he was notorious for making tons of mistakes, and even on recordings. And he has a couple recordings where they're my favorite of whichever piece that it is. So again, I'm not a hater. I'm not super picky about this stuff. I just like that people are making music, having a good time.
Yeah, no, you could miss a lot of notes and have a great performance. I think that's. I think most people would agree with that. I think what did Beethoven say? It's like to miss a note is acceptable. To play without feeling is terrible. I don't know exactly what he said, but he basically said the same thing. You can miss some notes, but to play without expression or play without feeling, that's the cardinal sin in music.
Missing notes is okay. Beethoven approved.
Yeah, Beethoven approved, right. Hearing Yu Zhuang or hearing like some of these pianists who don't, it's like extra, it's extra spectacular and extra amazing. It's cool if you're just a phenom and you can practice that much and train your mind and your body to where you don't, all the better. But don't let that stop you from making music. And because we teach beginners at Piano by Pictures, we encourage mistakes all the time. We just want to get you playing. We just want to get you playing, get you experiencing the piano, playing songs. I was laughing at watching that Lang thing, by the way, because I've filmed so many hours of teaching for our students. And so it's kind of fun, like to hear one of the most famous pianists in the world, like his persona in front of the camera talking about like a C major scale. It feels like he's like messing around.
Yeah, he was certainly having fun with it. I'm going to deep dive his lesson videos whenever we're through.
There's a pretty good one where he plays the black key etude with an orange.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Hey guys, I'm Lang Lang. I'm a pianist, but not using my fingers, with orange. Have you ever heard the Chopin Etudes, Opus 10 number 5? It's called Black Keys. Normally it's like this. But today I will play a special version with orange. What do you think?
I think I saw that and I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah, I think he's cool. I think we would have a good time. I would love to hang out with him. That'd be awesome. Kind of thinking about, most of our students are beginners, and, I want to be able to have conversations about this stuff, but also still frame it in a way in which beginners can get stuff out of it and take that to their piano playing. So I have my opinion about what I think newbies should take from this, but I'd like to get your take. Like, what do you think student who's been playing for a couple weeks or a couple months, seeing long play, like what would you want them to get from that?
That's a good question. I think probably mostly just kind of be inspired. I think that it's hard if you've been playing for like a couple weeks or a couple months even to hear somebody like this play and the fear with that kind of thing is just getting overwhelmed, thinking that that's what piano playing has to be. And obviously it doesn't. There's so many different people, especially in our community in Piano by Pictures. Most of our people are retired. They've always wanted to play piano. They find we teach it as a hobby, right? We're not training professional musicians for the most part, even though in these videos we like to talk about these superstar professional musicians. I would say be inspired, not overwhelmed would be like the main thing. Well, what do you think?
What I really take away from him is just how much fun that he's having while playing. Even when he's on these stages, and classical music or piano music has a reputation for being stuffy and stiff, and as we have learned from doing these videos, there are people that have a very pretentious, gatekeepy way of thinking about this stuff. And it's like, that's not even historically accurate. When all of these pieces were being written and performed, like, people were going buck wild in the audiences at these concerts. They were throwing stuff at opera singers they didn't like they were having little classical mosh pits in the opera house and stuff. And so this sort of modern way of going about it, even with concert etiquette and this type of music being perceived as like a high class art form, I think is really silly and sad, because it keeps a lot of people from experiencing some of the most beautiful things that humans have ever created, So I really do appreciate a performer like Lang Lang, who's just like, I'm having fun. Ultimately, like, is sort of the point of music.
Yeah.
Why do we even do this at all? It's like, because it's fun. It makes parties less lame. You can use it to impress prospective mates. But other than that, it's really not that serious. Yeah, sure, it does kind of help us as human beings experience the je ne sais quoi, or like to try to touch God or whatever. But ultimately, it's like, the point of this is to have fun. And anything you're doing to keep other people from having fun with music, or keeping yourself from having fun with music, is just a waste of time. Don't do it.
I love it. That's a good point. You said attract a potential mate.
Yeah, well, at least that's what the Wikipedia article says about the history of music.
So do you feel like you wooed your wife into like marrying you with your piano playing?
Oh yeah, she met me at a gig. Absolutely. Yeah, it played a factor.
So I met my wife at church, and it was like when I was like professionally gigging a lot. I was doing like circ shows, and I was doing all kinds of concerts around town, and the Smith Center, and our big fancy like classical concert hall with the Las Vegas Orchestra, doing lots of gigs, having a lot of fun. And I would always joke that like, let's say you're a 7 on the attractiveness scale. Mm-hmm. If you play the piano really well, you become an 8.
Oh yeah, no, you definitely get points.
You do, but then when you tell them that you play piano for a living, you go down to a 6. So you gain 2 points, but then you lose 2 when you do it professionally for a living. So
yeah, well, you're a businessman now, so you got those points back, I'm sure.
Still a pianist at heart, though.
Yeah, that's why I like having these conversations. I'm like, part of me wants to pull you back into the fold. I'm like, bro, let's start a band.
Hey, we got a YouTube channel. That's pretty good. All right, Jacob. Cool. Well, it's been awesome chatting today. I hope our listeners enjoyed it and are checking out all kinds of Lang Lang recordings right now. And let us know what you think about everything. We love responding and talking in the comments below. And it's super fun. Even the insulting ones, like, keep those coming, because we enjoy reading those. So I'll see you later, and thanks.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.